What is going on, everyone? This is Ninja Geek here, and today we're going to be talking about The Evil Within and its DLCs. Now, I did a review on The Evil Within, like the first whole game, of course, a couple months back, so I'll leave that and the link in the description below so you can check out my full review on that. The original game was, in my opinion, I thought it was great. Had a great storyline, had a great everything, really. The game mechanics were a little off, shooting, anything like that sometimes was a little off within the game. But overall, upgrading with the green gel, doing this and that within the whole game, dismantling traps, doing, the final boss of the game. The final boss wasn't extremely hard, but it was mostly action. And it was really good. I thought the original game was good, and the DLCs are the complete opposite. And I'm going to be going over this basically because I don't want anyone to waste their money if they hadn't already. So, of course, with these DLCs, you can purchase the season pass for $15 now. I think it's on sale if the sale is still lasting. Otherwise, the DLC is like $20 or $25. Totally not worth that. And I'm going to be explaining that here because I played through DLC 1 and 2 and the Executioner, so all three of them, completed all three of them, so I know what I'm talking about. The DLCs are not worth anyone's time or money for that matter. I mean, even if you spent the money in, it's not worth the time or money at all, period. The main game, basically, if you remember back when you last played it, the main game is all about running, gunning, shooting, and then hiding in specific areas, sneaking around when you can. It was kind of a mixture between the two, but it was mostly gunplay in the original game. Of course, then you had the upgrades, which you could upgrade weapons, abilities, and stuff like that for your first Sebastian. And I thought that system really worked out well. Within the DLC, I thought it was going to be the same thing. I thought we were going to go in there, get some green gel, do this, upgrade this, and continue along the DLC the same way that the story continued along with playing as Julie Kidman, because if you didn't know, that is the main character. Now here I'm not going to spoil anything, I'm not going to give off any ending, I'm simply going to review the DLC for what it was. If you want to see the ending or how it ends, even though we're going to talk more about that, but not the actual ending, you can just obviously search videos for it on YouTube itself so you can see that, or get the DLC, which I don't recommend unless you want to waste your money and time on this. But the first one, of course, is the Assignment. That's the first DLC. The second one is the Consequence, and the third one is the Executioner. Now, within the Assignment and the Consequence, the two story-based DLCs where you play as Julie Kidman, the game focuses on more of a sneak-based attack system. It's not meant to be played like the original Evil Within, which is kind of misleading because the original game was mostly gunplay with very few killing mechanics that were silent and sneaky. But here within these two DLCs, the whole objective, you don't even have a weapon. You only have a weapon through the entire both of these DLCs combined. You only are holding a weapon for about 3% of it. Not even that. There's just no gunplay. Maybe you're the type of person that likes that. For me, if the original game was all sneak and no weapon, then it would have fit the style. But because the original game had gunplay in it, the DLCs make absolutely no sense. The game is trying to become something different than the original game, and that's what threw me off when I first started playing. Eventually I got used to it, but the thing is, it's hard to get used to something where the mechanics just simply don't work. Most of the times, it'll ask you to sit behind a rock, sit behind this, behind that, taking cover from these enemies. Some of them are invisible, in fact, like the original game had invisible enemies, but there you could at least fight them. Here you have to either sneak past them or find an axe to sneak kill them. It's impossible if you're holding an axe but you're on the wrong side. Like, sometimes the enemy will just end up seeing you through the area that you're hiding behind anyways, because of the shitty game mechanics. Like that, like, I don't understand what the problem is. I get that they're trying to do a whole sneak and play thing here, but the mechanics just don't work. And most of the times you end up getting seen behind cover, and then they see you and chase you, and it's like, well, I might as well just kill myself now because I know I'm going to lose a little bit of health. You can't even use the axe as a weapon. Like, you can't use it to go and slash through an enemy and kill him like you could in the original Evil Within game. You have to use it to behind enemies to actually sneak kill them. So the axe is pretty much worthless unless they don't see you, which happens most of the time anyways. They end up seeing you. Another thing about these both DLCs, both combined, is the fact that Kidman is a wimp. In the original, of course, you can upgrade your stamina, like I said before, your Sebastian's abilities and guns and stuff like that, so you can make Sebastian run for a long time. In the beginning of the actual game, he ran like a couple feet, and he was out of breath already. But here in the DLC, since you can't upgrade anything, there's no green gel, there's no nothing, you have to stick with the default stamina that Kidman has. And that's only about 2 feet. So try getting away from an enemy when you're trying to run. I mean, especially like we were just talking about the shitty sneak mechanics. If you're trying to run away from an enemy because they randomly saw you behind a piece of cover, you're only going to run like 2 feet, and then she stops and catches her breath for like 50 seconds. It makes absolutely no sense. And the mechanics, like I said before, the mechanics are just completely terrible. So having her run 2 feet with no upgrade to the ability to be able to run further makes absolutely no sense. With the running, there are scenes within the DLC where you actually run, like you're trying to run away from specific enemies, and that's an example is at the end of the assignment when you're trying to run away. You can actually run and not get tired. You can run, and there's during those checkpoints, there's no times where you are running and you stop for breath reasons. There's nothing like that. You just continuously run, yet in the duration of the original gameplay, you can't run 2 feet without stopping. It makes absolutely no sense. So I don't know what they were thinking of when they came up with the design of the stamina system. It makes absolutely no sense. It just pulls away from the entire gameplay altogether when you died by something the game just can't physically handle. The next thing, the whole game more or less is based around riddles and puzzles, and that's really it. The original game it had its fair share of puzzles within it, but it was more on the gameplay side, more on the story and gameplay side. Here, within these two DLCs, the first two DLCs, it's more on how can I solve this puzzle to unlock certain pieces of the story and continue and sometimes even progress on to other parts of the game. Yes, they are challenging, and there's nothing really wrong with the puzzles. It's not like they are way too challenging. Some are kind of harder than other ones. Other ones you have to look through. But if you really want to see where those are, don't even waste hours upon hours trying to look through and find the numbers for this specific safe so you can get a specific piece of writing. Most people just go on YouTube and look up a walkthrough if they really want to get those achievements or trophies and try and find them. Going through and looking for them is going to be a pain unless you absolutely know where they are. But getting back to the actual gunplay, you don't have a weapon like I've mentioned before. And at the end of the assignment, there's this one part, it's like right at the end, literally, when you go into the church. There's no surprise here of anything special that happens, so I'm going to describe it. Throughout the whole thing, you have no weapon, and at the end of the church, where the first cutscene happens, right when you open the door, Kidman randomly pulls out her pistol with it loaded, and she even loads it, aiming to shoot at Leslie. Not going to explain why, but the point is, if she has no weapons, no ammo, I should say, because she had the pistol, but she had no ammo for it, where does she randomly find this ammo? It makes absolutely no sense. The game designers didn't think things through a little bit, because if she actually had the ammo in the beginning, why couldn't she use it then through the whole gameplay? It just doesn't make any sense at all, and they could have really thought things through a little bit more. The DLCs, all three of them, ask more questions than the whole game pertains to. The original game left off with an unsettling ending that made you want to play more to see what happens within the game. And obviously, after playing these DLCs, they are probably going to release an Evil Within 2, a sequel, because the DLCs leave you off with even more questions than the original game has, which makes absolutely no sense. You're tricked basically into buying a DLC thinking that the game is going to end, when in reality, all it is just another continuation, a waste of $20, and you're just playing the game, you're just walking through it, with all these problems that I mentioned that it has, with more questions leading into the ending than you had in the original game. So now on top of the original game's questions, you have different kind of questions from the different endings you get from DLC 1 and 2, and then moving on to DLC 3, DLC 3 is completely different. Of course, the Consequence completely finished off that, and the Executioner is just something different. I think they wanted to add in a different aspect to the game, because the DLCs, DLC 1 and 2, obviously finished it. Now DLC 3, they took a little bit of a different side story with it. DLC 3, you play as the Keeper, aka the Boxman, if you don't know, and playing as the Boxman, at first when I started off, I had nothing, I don't even know anything about these DLCs when I started off. I didn't look up gameplay, I didn't look at trailers or this or that or whatever. I started off playing as the Keeper, and to my surprise, it was in first person. Now that's something completely different, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but the first thing that I even noticed before it was in first person was the fact that the Executioner is in full screen mode. What? Why? If that DLC can be in full screen mode, why couldn't they make the entire game in full screen mode? Since the beginning, I know I haven't mentioned it in my Evil Within regular review, but there's no point in having the aspect ratio 16 or whatever it is. I think it's 16 by 10. There's absolutely no point in having that. It makes no sense. It's not horrifying at all. It just makes it more tedious because you're looking at the black bars on the screen. I get, yes, some games have those in cutscenes. Most of them do, and that's okay because they want to differentiate the cutscenes between the gameplay. But the Evil Within has it throughout the entire game, except for this one DLC, where you play in first person. I would love to play the Evil Within in a full resolution, 16 by 9, but because it's 16 by 10, you can't, and you're missing out on everything, and it doesn't make it more horrifying, says the game developers. It just makes it more tedious because you're scratching at your head wondering why you, the developer, couldn't make it a full screen. But anyways, getting past the full screen capabilities, you play as first person mode as the Keeper in the Execution. You go through. So first and foremost, I would like to say about the Executioner DLC that's different from the other DLCs in here is that the gameplay is actually better. Of course, this is in first-person mode, so it's a little bit different. You can't really compare the two, but this DLC has way better killing angles, and you feel something when you're playing the game. Like you feel accomplished as you're going through. The problem is that the story is complete bullshit. There's no storyline at all. There's nothing at all. I mean, you're a father trying to look for your daughter and see what happened within the STEM project, but there's no storyline at all. It doesn't make any sense, and that's why it's a $5 DLC versus the other $10 DLCs by standalone. So if you're looking to play the Executioner or buy it for a story-based thing, like you think you're going to get a story out of it, forget about that, because that is just completely a waste of time. The gameplay is really what matters, because there's these different modes. I forgot what they're called. but you can go in there and kill a bunch of enemies in a certain kind of wave type of form. That's what I really had the most fun in the whole DLC, but the storyline doesn't make any sense at all, and the problem with the Executioner is actually the final boss. The final boss makes you want to kill yourself. It is so frustrating, and it's more frustrating and annoying than you're trying to get past it to have fun and be accomplished, because you basically have to kill the Dark Keeper, which is another form of you, but it's a Dark Keeper, and he apparently has this long-ass machete that's basically almost as long as him. You have to kill him 3 separate times. So you kill him the first time using traps, he respawns, you kill him again, and then he respawns, makes these the lady with the hands come out, she chases you around, so you gotta find the keeper again, and then slash at him, and then he starts attacking you, and you gotta kill him a 3rd time. All it is just tedious nonsense bullshit that the game makes you go through for nothing at all in the ending, because after you kill him, all it is a cutscene of you back at the stem place, and then the game basically ends. So there's no ending to it. It's a wasted DLC, other than the fact that the killing is awesome with the angles and such. The game itself, the DLC itself, isn't worth it. If you're buying the whole season pass in general, this DLC, all of them combined, is a waste of time. The original game I thought was really good, except, of course, the black bars. That is a problem that I don't like at all. But other than that, if you're just focusing on gameplay-wise, yes, the mechanics are a little off in everything, but within the great story that the original game had, as well as the gameplay itself, by just looking at its standard, it really was a great experience, and I hope that they continue with that with a sequel, but instead, the developers had to milk your money by basically making you pay more money for something that you should have gotten in the original game, because it's not like the DLC solved anything. It wasn't like it was the end of the game. It wasn't like there was a specific ending. All it did was ask more questions, then answered more questions. So now you're putting more questions in people's heads as to what happened with the original storyline, but you're just making them pay $20 for a season pass or more money for the standalone DLCs, which I don't know why you would do that. You'd rather get a season pass and save a couple bucks, especially if it's on sale like I got mine for. The DLC is not worth anyone's money, anyone's time. It's not even worth the own toilet paper that you wipe your own ass with. That is my final review of The Evil Within, all of its DLCs. Of course, as always, leave your comments below if you played these DLCs or if you were looking to get them a while back. I know I'm not doing it right as the Executioner kind of came out. It was a couple months ago. I think it was back in May. So actually that was only like 2 months ago. But anyways, leave your comments below on that, and I will see you on whatever my next video happens to be. Of course, I do reviews from here and time in and out whenever I feel like doing a review of a game. Normally, it's more, I was trying to do more entertaining ones, but this I had to sit down and let my thoughts all out. And I'll see you on whatever my next video happens to be. I'm Ninja Geek. I'm out. Peace.